So this week in music, like I said, we have Knocked Loose announcing a headlining U.S. tour with a very unexpected supporting band. We have an update on a channel favorite band on their new record, plus a classic band is throwing in the towel, it would seem, for touring, but only touring? Let's get into that. Welcome, nerds, to this week's edition of the Music News. This is just a section, one section of six, count them, six other sections that we do over on the main channel in a show I like to call Week in Nerddom, where we talk about all of the nerdy things. You can find a link to that show down in the description or at the end of this video. Now let's talk about new music, touring information, and other generally interesting things to do with the music news. You thought I was going to say generally nerdy, didn't you? Follow-ups and corrections this week. We actually have one, and it's really cool, and I'm totally excited about it. Blackbraid has sent out emails, if you're on his mailing list, announcing that he is actively working on the next record, finally. That record is set to be released next year, but that's not to say that we're not going to get anything before then. He actually is planning on releasing the first single, or music video, or however you want to look at that, for the next record this week, which means he's been doing a little bit of work that we haven't been 100% knowledgeable of. Either way, super exciting. No announcement as to what the song is or anything. It will be released Friday as I record these things, Tuesday nights and Wednesday mornings. It's not been released, so we can't really talk about what the single is, but we will be next week for sure. That's the only follow-up we have this week. So let's get into the new music section. This week in new music, our first bit comes from former Fear Factory frontman Burton C. Bell. He has released another single. It's called Technical Exorcism. This one's a little bit more groove and bass oriented than previous outings, especially the stuff that he did with Fear Factory, which is not a bad thing at all. Still dig... I'll say this cautiously because Burton C. Bell is not my favorite metal vocalist, but he's still a solid and consistent metal vocalist, so you know exactly what you're going to get out of him. The really interesting part about this is the difference in the music behind those vocals, and it's worth a listen for sure. So definitely check out Technical Exorcism, the new single from Burton C. Bell. The next one comes from a band that I almost didn't talk about this week. The name of the band is Pop Evil. They have released a new single called What Remains. This is not what I remember about these guys. They've kind of been not on the radar for a while. I don't want to say that they were on hiatus because I don't know that for sure, but I think they might have been. And this is a band I honestly have a little bit of a personal history with, but that's irrelevant to the fact that they just put out a new single. This is surprisingly heavy for this band. They generally put out like very octane core, like on the lighter side of octane core stuff. And this is still pretty much octane core, but it's almost like liquid metal heavy. Definitely worth a listen, if for no other reason than morbid curiosity, because they're changing things up, and that's not always a bad thing. Usually it's a good thing. In this point, I'm going to leave that one up to you. The next band we are talking about for new music is a new band as far as I understand it. They are called Neon Nightmare. The name of the song is Lost Silver, and this one is definitely 15 Shades of Typo Negative. As much as I say Do Unto Others has shades of Typo Negative in their sound, this is like copy paste the Typo Negative sound to a large degree, not exclusively, but definitely to a large degree. It's still definitely worth a listen to, especially since we don't get new Typo Negative these days. So yeah, it's worth a listen for that reason, just to scratch that itch, if nothing else. But the bits that are unique unto Neon Nightmare are really interesting to listen to. I want to dig a little bit deeper into this band to really get the feel for what they have to offer, because this song is heavily typo, but I'm sure there's more to their sound than just this, and I'm really interested to get into that. So yeah, you should check this one out too. Only if you like the really gothy, dark kind of metal. Our next piece of new music comes from a band that I've heard of quite a bit in the community, never actually took the time to listen to. They put out a new track. The name of the name of the band is Molder, as in something that causes mold to happen. And the name of the song is Catastrophic Reconfigure. This is barky death metal. This is like the quality of recording here is something you might expect more out of like a black metal band, just because this sounds like a demo. Honestly, the way this was recorded, just the quality of the recording is not what I expect out of modern production at all. I'm also a little bit of a production snob, and I recognize this, but I don't know. I feel like if your sound is about technical precision, and I mean, because that's the genre, death metal is about technicality, right? And then you sound like you just kind of threw this together in your buddy's mom's basement, then it just doesn't really serve your sound very well. And the excessive amount of reverb, I think, is enough to, it's over. Like, let's update the production quality of this stuff. You can still make this really brutal, and this song is super brutal. You can still make really brutal music, really brutal death metal. It doesn't have to sound modern, but it does, I feel like at this point, have to sound good. So yes, if you like brutal music, I would say definitely check out the new track from Molder. If you're a fan of Molder, then you know exactly what you're diving into. I feel like somebody who's new to the death metal genre should probably steer clear of this one until you are a little bit more well-versed in the death metals. But aside from that, I can't really make much of a recommendation. It's just not there production-wise. I'm sorry. And then our next piece of new music comes from the band out of Texas that is kind of making waves right now in the heavy scene, Kubla Khan. They have put out, it is a real quick little thing. They could have posted it as a short because it is a minute long, but Kubla Khan has released Supreme Ruler, is off their forthcoming record. I did not write down the record name because I take amazing notes, but this is just a 1 minute, 60 seconds worth of absolute freaking destruction. Actually, it's even shorter than that because it starts with a sample. So it's like 45 seconds of just straight destruction. And it sounds rough on purpose. Like, that's kind of the way Kubla Khan rolls. But comparing this to that Molder track, like, this is a little bit better of an example of what you can do in the extreme side of the production side of music. And it works super well. Like, the more I hear from Kubla Khan, and I did see them live recently, the more I hear from these guys, the more I really dig them. So I think this is absolutely worth a listen because it's only a minute long. It's straight out of the hardcore playbook. Check it out. Supreme Ruler, Kubla Khan. Yeah, do the thing. And now we're moving on to a band that I think we're done talking about when they release new singles, just because their profile is to a level where it makes sense that, people know they're gonna go listen to it just because, and they kind of have a sound unto themselves that you know exactly what you're getting into because they have a fan base that's big enough at this point. It's not to say if they don't do something crazy, we're not gonna talk about them again, but if they keep putting out solid, I'm not trying to diminish the value of this music, but if they keep putting out solid tracks like this, they're probably just going to go the way of like Mastodon or something, where we might reference them. We probably won't, though. The band I'm talking about, though, is Escuela Grind. The name of the new track is Concept of God, and good Lord, this is brutal. I am a bit of a fan of these guys, and they just don't stop. They are constantly writing, constantly touring, constantly just in your face with, this is how freaking talented we are, and you're gonna have to deal with it and be our fan now. And yeah, sure, I'm on board, let's roll. I feel like everyone who is into the aggressive sounds that music can be should probably have at least a minor appreciation for Escuela Grind. This is a pretty decent track to get into if you've never really listened to them. The last song we talked about wasn't the best example of their sound. This one, I think, is a fantastic example of their sound. So go check out Concept of God from Escuela Grind. And then our final piece of new music this week, we got some deathcore from Russia in Slaughter to Prevail. Well, this is deathcore from Germany. The name of this band is Obey the Kraken. The name of the song is Whispers from the Depths. This is the second single from this new band. And oh boy, deathcore by numbers is kind of exactly what this is. Now, is that a bad thing? Abso-freaking-lutely not, because they are doing it stupid well. Production is right on point. I don't have any issues with the way this sounds. And the performances are really just knocking it out of the park. Vocalist just has all of the sounds that you would expect out of a deathcore vocalist to have. He's got them all down pat, and just, if you are looking for a prime example of the genre, this is your prime example of deathcore. Absolutely would recommend Obey the Kraken's Whisper from the Depths. That's all we got for new music. So now let's talk about tours and festivals. We got a couple of pretty decent tours to talk about. Not going for the big one first. The first one we are talking about is In This Moment. They have announced the Godmode Part 2 tour. So it's just this, they haven't stopped touring. They're just starting more dates. They've booked new shows. So Godmode Part 2 will feature Kim Dracula, Nathan James, and Mike's Dead as the supporting acts. Tour kicks off November 8th in Asheville. So this leg of the tour in Asheville, North Carolina, runs through December 7th in Manchester. It will be on sale as of today as I'm filming this. So the 14th is when it goes on sale, runs through tomorrow, the 15th, for the pre-sales. And then as of Friday, it will be open to general public. You can find a link down in the description that will take you to where you can purchase them. I do not have my own pre-sale code, so you're going to have to find one on your own. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to send traffic to where I know you can get one, but I'm sure it's not super hard to find pre-sale code, so go check that out if you're interested. Next one, similarly going to be on sale to the general public as of this Friday. So the 16th, but pre-sale starts today as I'm talking, and tomorrow as you're watching, and then again Friday for the rest of the world. This is Knocked Loose. This is the big one that we teased at the beginning of the episode. Support from this one. This is the weird part. Support from this one is The Garden, Drain, Militarie Gun. Those are the three bands. The weird one is The Garden. The Garden is second billing, which means they're right before the headliner. This is not a band, like The Garden is great. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely freaking love those guys. But on tour with Knocked Loose, I don't know who the other two bands are, Drain and Militarie Gun. I'm going to assume they're a little bit more in line with the Knocked Loose sound than the Garden sound. Garden sound is more avant-garde. I don't even know how to properly describe it, really. But yeah, it's a very weird combination. This tour starts October 4th in Columbus, Ohio, runs through November 10th in Washington, D.C., capital of this great nation. Pre-sale, like I said, begins today as I'm talking. We'll run through tomorrow as you're watching, and then we'll go open to the general public on Friday. Link in the description once again. And those are the only two? I thought there was a third. I am full of poop. Let's move right along to regular ass news then. This week in the regular news, we have Aerosmith is calling it quits. Not exactly. Aerosmith is thrown in the towel as far as touring goes. So Steven Tyler, I believe we talked about this when it happened, but Steven Tyler had a vocal injury last year and has been trying to recover from it ever since. He hasn't because they've basically just been on tour ever since, and that doesn't really lend itself to healing vocal cords. So at this point, they're saying he very likely will never completely heal, so he'll never be back to 100%, and that's not really what they want to do with their touring cycles, so they're no longer going to tour. And I'm saying that very specifically because that's how they outlined it in the announcement to fans. They said that they are no longer going to be touring. They are calling it quits with the touring side of their career, implying that there's still going to be new music that comes from Aerosmith. They're still going to release songs and very possibly will do like one-off shows here and there. But as far as like full-blown tours, they're not going to do those anymore. They have canceled the rest of the dates on the current tour that they had booked. So if you have tickets to see them and you have not already seen them, you should be getting a refund. I think the refunds are going to be through the vendor through which you bought your tickets, though. Go check at the Aerosmith website in order to double check that. You can find a link down in the description. If you don't want to type it in, you just want to click a button, I did that for you. But yeah, the pretty interesting situation with Aerosmith these days. That's what we got on that one. Let's move to our next one, which is Clutch. This is a quick one. Neil Fallon, lead singer for Clutch, is looking to start recording the next record sometime next year. He said they've been working on demos, so they're kind of technically working on it at this point. But they don't have anything really set in stone. They're going to really hunker down and get that going next year. So very probably by the end of next year, I would hope, we will see a new record from Clutch, and I'm here for it because I love those guys. That's what we got for regular ass news. That leaves only this week's music suggestion. The music suggestion for the week is Magma from Gojira. This is the record that follows their big one, the big release of Magma from Gojira. This is technically the third release, but the second major label release, I believe, that follows From Mars to Sirius, which was their breakout record that really got everybody into them. Randy Blythe is the reason why many people have heard of this band to begin with, and now they're just everywhere. They just played the freaking opening ceremonies at the Olympics, which is huge, not only for them, but for the community at large. I'm super stoked about that. But yeah, this is a significant album unto itself, not just because it follows, it's a fantastic follow-up to From Mars to Sirius, but you've got tracks like Shooting Star, Stranded, and what was the Lowlands, sorry, brain fart, Lowlands. Really, really atmospheric, just kind of those three tracks. If you don't listen to the whole record, just listen to those 3 tracks and you'll get a very good picture of who Gojira is as a band. This is absolutely a record worth listening to. Go listen to Magma from Gojira. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means, just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.